feel so good.
What's wrong?
I don't know, ever since I emerged from my cell, I feel really lousy and I'm like jittery. And I feel like nectar is fermenting in my stomach and I can't keep my pollen down.
Oh, medic, help!
Oh, she has acute bee paralysis virus.
Oh, maybe if I feed her.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because remember, feeding her is not going to bring her back to life.
Oh, well, if you're sure she's dead.
Well, remember, whatever she had, you could get.
What's next?
You're a nurse bee.
Oh. But I'm a nurse bee. That's what I do. I feed people. Especially cute little larvae. I just
girls, what's going
love feeding those little larvae.
What's that? What's going on? What's shaking? Why are you shaking? What's going on? You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
What happened to her? You want me to call the mortuary bee? I'm getting ready to go out to the DC area. I can call the mortuary bee if you want.
No,
What?
I'm fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Oh my God, what happened to your wings?
What wings? Oh, my wings are fine. They're fine. They're fine.
I hate to be the one to tell you, but you're not getting far flapping those babies.
What?
See this, Mite?
Yeah?
I think you've got deformed wing virus.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. And you know what else?
What?
I'm sorry, but these mites, that's a varroa mite.
Yeah.
You know, they reduce sperm count. So even if you made it out to the DCA,
Yeah?
I'm pretty sure you'll be shooting blanks. Princess Isabella is going to have to hope there's some drones out there that don't have any mites. Oh, they're there. Don't cry. Why don't you go over to that frame on the end and have a little nectar and pollen? You'll feel better.
That frame? That
Yeah.
frame over there?
Yeah.
Well, those drones, they look sick. They're all dying. There's not enough mortuary bees to get rid of them all. Oh, no, I'm not going over there. Matter of fact, I got to sit down. I don't feel good. Ugh.
I'm hungry.
Oh, poor sweet baby. Here, let me feed you. Oh, you should be nice and plump, but look at you. You're far too skinny for a 5th instar larva. Winter's coming. How are you going to make it to spring if you don't have nice big fat bodies with extra reserves of food?
I told you not to do that. You will give that virus to that baby, and you got it from her. Look at all the bugs on her. Look at them on you.
I'm not going to give the baby the virus. Besides, look at her. She's just skin and exoskeleton.
She doesn't have an exoskeleton. She's just a larvae.
Please, I'm hungry.
You know what I mean.
Okay, you can do that all day. It won't make a bit of difference. You have one of those mites on you, and somehow that hurts you making the brood food in your gland. Ugh, I don't know how they do it, but it's just not good food. And you, put out some brood pheromone. Get another nurse bee with none of those bugs on you to feed you.
But literally all other nurse bees have these same bugs on them. I'm starving.
I don't feel so good. I think maybe I better sit down.
Oh dear. There are way too many mites in this hive. And they're on all the larvae and pupae. What are we gonna do?
You know, I think you should talk to the others. Most of the mites, most of those bugs are in the brood. So if the queen and the adults just leave, go somewhere where there aren't any mites, you get rid of a lot of the bugs.
All the adult bees have varroa on them. Where's that beekeeper? We had a deal. He took all of our extra honey and he was supposed to take care of us. I mean, he was here in the spring and he put that stinky stuff on it. And a lot of the varroa died, but now it's fallen. They're all back again. All right, I'm gonna go tell the others to just leave. Let's abscond, everyone! Abscond!
Don't leave me! We're all gonna die!
Okay. Take a bow. Everybody get up. Take a bow. Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And don't go anywhere.
This is a tragedy or Shakespearean.
Well, as I was telling the rest of my cast, I'm pretty sure HBO isn't going to be, and Netflix is not going to be booking us anytime soon.
I think it was pretty good.
You missed, you didn't get to say one of your lines.
Yeah.
She had another line.
Poor baby.
Hungry. You're hungry.
She's hungry. Okay. PowerPoint.
Most realistic.
You want the good news or the bad news?
What?
I said, do you want the good news or the bad news?
The good news is I have the PowerPoint. The bad news is there's no remote.
Oh, okay. So I have to point at you when I want the next slide?
I will sit here. I will
Okay.
man the slides.
Okay. What happened to the remote?
I have no idea. They rearranged everything, and ever since
Wait,
they...
Landi, where did we get all these varroa? I mean, not from the hive, these particular ones.
They were printed, okay? They're from a 3D printer, and Rick out in the Northwest chapter made them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Landi,
Yeah.
one quick question. Do you think we could spare one for our state apiarist, just so she could really, show off this?
Yes. I think,
And this one sticks really well.
okay. 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 All right.
Close, you ever want to get more Mike?
Anything else? Okay. We bought a bunch of these just so we could do this.
Nice thing to throw darts at.
Where are you going to stand?
I don't know. Where do you want me to stand over here?
Yes.
I'll stand over here. Okay. All right. So guys, John, sit down. John, sit. Stay. Okay. I know we are sick of hearing about mites. Is everybody sick of hearing about mites? Yes, everybody's sick of hearing about mites. So the reason we did that little skit was to hopefully pique your interest and maybe demonstrate one or two things that you might not be entirely aware of that varroa does. So, and I think that those were demonstrated pretty well in our little skit. It depresses the immune system, okay, because the fat bodies are like the equivalent of the liver in a human. They are responsible for all kinds of metabolic functions, including the immune system response. Transmits multiple viruses, okay, not just deformed wing virus and acute bee paralysis virus that we were demonstrating, but all kinds of other stuff. Black queen cell virus, chronic bee paralysis virus, Kashmir bee virus, Israeli acute bee paralysis. I could go on and on and on. There's something like, Megan, how many different viruses do you know? 20 something?
I think it's 21 plus minus.
Yeah, a lot of viruses. Damages brood food glands in nurse bees. So what does that mean? That means we have skinny larvae, okay, that grow up to be skinny adults. And what is critical for getting through winter? Okay, big fat bodies with reserves of food. The winter bees have to live in some in some areas 6 months. Around here, they've got to get through at least 4 or 5 months before spring. So winter bees live longer than spring and summer and fall bees, okay? And they're physiologically different. The way they're different is because they have these big fat bodies. And the only way they get those big fat bodies is by being fed. Okay. Now, this is when they're getting fed. Okay. Decreased sperm counts in drones. Sorry, Princess Isabella. Okay. Yes, decreasing lifespan by up to 80%. At the end of our little skit, okay, everybody but one bee was dead. No, you were still alive too, but not for long. Our larva was on the way out. She was starving. So Varroa kills the colony. If the bees stay in the hive, that shortened lifespan from the damaged fat bodies leads to winter kill, okay? And you wind up with this little tiny cluster of bees that starve within inches of honey because they lose their mobility. Cluster has to have a certain volume in order to have mobility within the hive. They can't move to their food stores. Hive can be full of honey and they'll starve to death. If they abscond, okay, they abscond and fall, the adults will still have mites, okay, and a shortened lifespan, and they won't have any time to amass more winter stores, and they die anyway. So it's pretty much a death sentence. So our infamous beekeeper, who will remain unnamed, I don't know who it was, but he wasn't very good. So how could he have prevented this? Testing. Alcohol washes, okay. I'm telling you, it's the most accurate way of measuring Varroa mite levels. And it's not particularly accurate, but it's the best we've got. And if you're afraid, you don't want to sacrifice 300 bees, remember, colony of bees is a superorganism, okay? It's not the individual bees that you are taking care of. It's the colony. And the colony needs that test done for its own good, okay? And treating, learning the pros and cons of all the available treatments and using them correctly. The days are gone when we could treat once and be done with it, and people will call me and ask me or say to me, well, what do you like to treat for Varroa? The question doesn't make any sense. It depends on the time of year. It depends on whether honey supers are on the hives or not. It depends on whether there's a nectar flow on, or if you're in between nectar flows. It depends on how close to winter you are. It depends on the waiting time between the treatment and any, time you have to wait after the treatment before putting honey supers on. There's so many different factors that there is no answer to that question unless you know the entire context. The best thing is to understand what the tools are in your toolbox, and we don't have that many. So we're going to talk about them. So, what do you need to know about mite treatments? How effective are they? Obviously, that's really important, right? Like some of them, like HopGuard, very low efficacy. I don't have that one in my toolbox because it really just doesn't work very well. What's the average kill rate? Is it consistent at all times of the year and under all conditions? They aren't all. Timing, how long does it take to treat? Honey supers, can you do it with honey supers on, or do you have to wait before putting honey supers on? And at what temperature can the treatment be used? Is it more effective at some temperatures than others? Okay. So what else? Equipment. Okay, some treatments need expensive equipment, like oxalic acid vaporization. Our club owns a vaporizer, the Varex Eddy. So we've bought it for you, and you can rent it. You have to be trained in it. We're going to have, I think, a training session in September, because we've moved our hive inspection to September. So come to September meeting, and you can be trained so that you can, you know, take out and use the Varex Eddy. Some treatments need a shim. You know, that's pretty simple to make. A lot less expensive than a vaporizer. Bee mortality, okay? Some treatments can kill brood or even queens under certain conditions. For example, Formic Pro. Somebody got really excited about Formic Pro out there killing queens. What was it?
I don't know, somehow I think that 911.
Car alarm, maybe?
Yeah.
Sounds like a wingless drone trying to fly.
Okay, so, and human safety, right? Some treatments can burn, cause permanent lung damage, or even death if you don't use it with the correct safety equipment. For instance, oxalic acid vaporization. It's a great treatment under the right conditions, but boy, you better make sure your mask fits correctly, okay? Because you don't want to breathe that in, you have permanent lung damage. Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. So, right, as I said before, one treatment is not enough. I treat at least 4 times a year. And there have been a couple of times in recent years when I've needed to treat 5 times in a year. Okay, think about that. How often do you treat? Okay, 5 times. Last year was my lowest winter survival, and it's because I was getting resistance to amitraz, and I took 95% of my colonies through the winter. Okay, the previous 2 years I had like 98 and 97% respectively, and that's on about 100 hives. Okay, but a lot of treatment to get there, a lot. And you have to alternate treatments to avoid getting resistance. The reason we are getting resistance to amitraz is because some beekeepers only used amitraz, Apivar. Okay, not me, but I'm suffering the consequences. Next slide, please. So, because of the mechanism of kill, it's less likely that the mites will develop resistance to the more natural chemicals like formic acid and oxalic acid. Okay, but it still can happen. So I do try to alternate treatments whenever possible. We can't lose any of them. We have very few effective ones at this point. Okay. So what are the tools in the Varroa toolbox? All right, this is an overview, and Justin, in his wonderful way, will post this whole thing right on our website, and you can look at these slides, so you can even print this out to refer it to, but we're going to look at these things one at a time, okay? So one treatment at a time. Justin? Do it again. Okay, Apivar. This was an absolutely amazing treatment with efficacy up around 99%, okay? So extremely effective treatment before we began developing resistance. And you may still have colonies where it's effective, and if that's the case, you can use it. Unfortunately, I don't trust it anymore. So, Apivar, you cannot have honey supers on the hive. And it's a pretty long treatment, okay? It's 42 to 56 days for the strips to be in the hive, plus a waiting period afterwards. So your total time is 56 to 70 days. That's a long time, okay? The 70 days is over 2 months, which means if you're expecting a fall flow and you've harvested, you know, your spring honey like in July, but you think you're going to get some more honey, say like a Japanese bamboo, August 15th, you can't use Apivar in that interval. It's too short a time period, right? Great thing about it, no temperature sensitivity at all. You can use it at 40 degrees, you can use it at 80 degrees, at 90 degrees, at 100 degrees, at 30 degrees. Anyway, one thing a lot of people don't realize is you can't save these. Once you open the package, it immediately starts to degrade. Okay, so that 42-day treatment, which is standard, all right, you start counting that as soon as you open the package, because Apivar, whose active ingredient is amitraz, begins to degrade in light and air. So unless you actually can seal it and completely exclude light, it's not effective anymore. So, you know, you opened it up and you left it in your closet and you're coming back a month later to use it, not going to work. Throw it away. Next slide. So, Apigard. This is a great treatment. I talked to Grant a couple of weeks ago, I guess before EAS, so I was trying to convince him to ditch his other gigs and come be our drone. You know, I ordered a tub of Apigard from him at that time, and he said to me, I don't know, you're the only one who orders this. I don't understand it. Nobody else gets Apigard. And I'm like, you're kidding me, because this is a great treatment. This is my next favorite after Formic Pro. Apigard is really versatile and good. So the active ingredient in Apigard is thymol. It's effective at temperatures above 60 degrees. You can use it at temperatures higher than you can use Formic Pro. You know, Formic Pro, the temperatures in the first 3 days of treatment have to be 85 or below. Just for the first 3 days. It can get higher after that. But thymol, you can use up to, I think, about 105 is what the label says. You need to reduce the dose to a half dose at temperatures above 77, but it can be used at pretty high temperatures.
The hotter the better.
Pardon?
The hotter the better.
Well, it gets harder on brood and queens at high temperatures. Okay, so you'll get a little more mortality at high temperatures, but if you really read the label, okay, the label will tell you to reduce the dose, and it'll tell you exactly how much to reduce it to. So, you know, another thing that I've observed is people don't read the label, and it's critical that you read the label. You know, if you don't want to read the label, go on the website and read their website about this product before you use it. Don't just blindly put it in. Go back. Yeah, Apigard. Okay. So you have to wait 28 days before supering. Okay. Because that's the period of treatment. It's two doses, 2 weeks apart. But after that 28-day treatment period is done, there's no waiting time before you have to put honey supers on. Okay, so that's the treatment time is the entire time that it takes. Yes?
Is that the same product in the 2 pictures?
Yeah, it is. So the difference is the top one comes in, I think, packs of what, 10 maybe? 10, okay. That one's for hobbyists. The bottom one, you get a tub of Apigard and you put it on. So it's for larger beekeepers. But most of you are probably going to get the top one, the tray. And, you know, and if you're using it at high temperatures, you're going to have to take some of that out. You're going to have to measure it. Okay. I get a syringe so I can actually, you know, dispense exactly how much I want. So you need a shim for this because it's a contact pesticide, so the bees have to be able to get at it. Okay, so you put that shim on. You put the shim on at this time of year, okay, if there's a flow, and you'll get a lot of burr-comb in the shim. Is what it is. Can't help it. Yeah, I use this on my nukes. This is kind of the only treatment I can use on my nukes. At this point, this is it, because I can't use the Apivar anymore. They have resistance.
With the nukes, so you just kind of slap it along top?
No, I use a shim. You know, I've got shim that I have made just for my nukes. They have to be able to get to it. You can't like slap an inner cover down on top of that. It won't be as effective because the bees won't be able to remove it.
Randy, it doesn't say up there how long you leave the Apivar in.
How long you leave it in? It's two-week treatment periods. That information is on the table before. So you put it on, right? And 2 weeks later you come back and you repeat the treatment.
So that's 14, 28, and then 28 days before you have to leave it unsupered for another 28 days?
No.
I'm missing something there.
Okay, that's the total time before you can super, and it is equal to the treatment time.
Okay.
There's no waiting time after the treatment time. Yeah. But you do have to go to the apiary twice. You know, not that big of a deal. Okay, next slide, please. So this is another product similar to Apigard, but Apilife Var has thymol, eucalyptus, menthol, and camphor. Okay, so it has 4 essential oils rather than just the thymol. And it comes in like a vermiculite wafer, which you break up and put in corners of the hive. So the problem is that it's effective only in a very narrow temperature range, okay, 60 to 70 degrees. So this is a spring treatment, that's pretty much it. But when it's 60 to 70 degrees, you're talking May and June, right? What's going on in May and June? It's the honey flow, exactly. And you can't have this there, you can't have it on with honey supers on. So this treatment is pretty much out for me and for most of us because, you know, you can't do it with honey supers on. Also, that the treatment time, that 54 to 60 day wait time before supering includes the treatment time plus a waiting period afterwards. And I think I'd have to go back and look. Let's go back to that, let's see, Apilife Var, the treatment length is 26 to 32 days, so it's basically 1 month of treatment, and then you have to wait another month before you can super. Okay, let's go back to our slide. Thank you.
Could that be like a late fall treatment?
What?
Could that be like a fall treatment if you weren't bringing in nectar?
Yeah, if you had fairly warm fall temperatures. It's that temperature range that's kind of can kill you, you know, because it requires, maybe in South Jersey.
Actually, we've been getting temperatures in that range in September, October.
Yeah, maybe September.
But September, you're getting all these Indian summer days of 80 and stuff like that. And if you get one of those days using this,
I mean, I don't think it's not like gonna hurt the bees, I think. Let's go back and, Justin, let's go back and look at the temperature requirements. Okay, Apilife Var, yeah, temperature range 60 to 70 degrees. Hard on bees at high temperatures.
if you get an 80-degree day in September, that could be toast.
That could be a problem. Yeah. All right. So it also needs 4 trips to the apiary because you're going back every week to put on new tablets. So you'll never find a commercial beekeeper using this product because it's just too labor intensive. That's an interesting way you could use it. On a new package or a nuke that doesn't have any supers. So, you know, you're establishing a new colony in spring, the temperature range is right, and you could, you know, if you don't want to use oxalic acid vaporization, you could use this. Possible. Okay. So, Formic Pro. Formic Pro has pretty much replaced Mite Away Quick Strips, although I think some commercial beekeepers think Mite Away Quick Strips is a little more effective and they are still using it. But I'm pretty sure the manufacturer, Nods Apiary, is discontinuing the use. Do you know, Megan, of Mite Away Quick Strips?
I haven't been able to find Mite Away Quick Strips. As far as like purchasing them online.
Can't buy them, right? Yeah.
I got them the shirt, man, like early bee season. I got a pack of 30.
MAQS?
MAQS.
Okay. All right. So the MAQS, the Mite Away Quick Strips, is a 7-day treatment. Pretty rough on the bees. Rough on queens, rough on brood, pretty intense. And they reformulated it, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and came up with the Formic Pro, which is in a formic acid embedded in a different substrate. And it's a little, I like it very much. It's gentler on the bees for sure. And it is a 14-day treatment rather than a 1-week treatment. So that short treatment period makes this an extremely versatile treatment. And the other great thing about it is you can use it with honey supers on the hive. Okay. So
you also use like one pad for 10 days. No, you don't recommend that?
I don't like that.
Double barrel first.
It is not as effective, and from what I understand, the research is that when you do that, the single pad followed by another pad, it doesn't kill all the mites under the cappings. Because this is one of the very few treatments that kills mites under the cappings. Okay? So this is my favorite go-to treatment. The biggest issue is that your temperatures have to be under 85 degrees for the first 3 days, not the entire period of treatment, just the first 3 days. So you've got to look at your phone and your weather app and pick a time to treat where the temperatures are 85 or below. Now, I do an additional thing, which is I freeze the pads. Okay, as far as I know, there's no actual research on that, but my experience and that of a lot of other beekeepers that I know and respect, people like Grant, although don't tell him that, respect him. We wouldn't want him to get a swelled head. A lot of them report the same thing. I freeze the pads. So I store these pads in the freezer and take them out and put them on the bees frozen. And it's a little easier. It's not quite as much of a hit. You know, formic acid is strong stuff.
But is it, you still use the same amount of time, the 14 days? Or
Yes.
you have to wait till it thaws out to give it a couple days?
No, same thing. I mean, it doesn't take long to thaw out in a beehive.
Like summertime, you're right.
Yeah, doesn't take long. Yeah.
So do you have to, so I love Formic Pro, but do you have to avoid feeding with it on? So I've read not to feed with it on.
Okay. The reason you avoid, you have to avoid in-hive feeding because they don't want you to open up the hive while this is in there, okay? If you're open feeding, right, that's not an issue because the bees are going out to forage and coming back. But Formic Pro, you have to understand how these different treatments act. So remember we were saying that Apigard is a contact insecticide. The bees have to actually touch it in order to kill the mites. Formic acid is a, what's the word I want? It's,
Vapor.
yeah. What's the word?
Vapor.
It's a yeah, it's a vapor, okay, so, right. God, I hate getting old. You know, I can't remember diddly squat anymore, so, Well, I remember diddly squat, but I can't remember what the right word is that I want. But it kills, it's a gas, okay, and it kills by coming in contact with the mites as a gas. But as soon as you open up the hive, you know what happens? You've dispersed all the gases in there. Okay, so you've reduced the effectiveness of your treatment. That's why you're not supposed to feed.
Landi, do you put extra boxes for room over the brood?
I will often add a honey super, yeah. Just to give,
What do you usually like?
what?
Do you use one honey super or two?
Depends on how big the colony is. Usually just one is fine. You know, I'm just kind of giving them someplace to go. Because they're like, oh my God, this is horrible stuff.
They rush out.
And they leave.
And,
Yeah.
you know, if they beard.
Yeah, they beard.
they're not getting the phoretic.
Right, but they will come back inside and, you know. I do, yes. And again, if you read the label, that is suggested on the label. So any mite treatment you use, read the label thoroughly. All the little nuances, nitty-gritty, okay? So this one, right, the entrances must be open. But if you've got a screened bottom board, you've got to close that off, okay? Entrance fully open, solid bottom board, or closed screen bottom board. And that's all on the label. So this is what I used as the 5th treatment in that year when I had to use 5 treatments. Treatment number 4 was Apogard. That was in September. And then when I tested after the Apogard, I found some high mite levels still because of robbing lures and mite balms in fall. Okay, so colonies that had been treated got reinfested afterwards, and this was what I used to kill the mites, okay, after they got reinfested. And it worked. It was fine. Okay, next slide. Hopguard. Yeah?
Do you test after, routinely test after?
Yes. I might skip the testing beforehand if I'm short on time. I never skip testing afterwards. The after treatment test is really critical. And I like to test beforehand too, because I want to make sure that I actually got a good reduction, and I want to know what my starting levels are, you know. But if I'm going to skip anything, I'll skip the first one, not the second one. If I had skipped that second alcohol wash in that year when I needed 5 treatments and got, you know, robbing lures and mite bombs at the end of September, beginning of October, I would have lost a lot of bees.
Would you treat back to back?
Yeah.
So, for a month?
There's nothing that says you can't treat back to back. Yeah. Hopguard 3. They've reformulated this many times, okay? 3 times as a matter of fact. It doesn't have a very high efficacy, only around 70 to 85%. That's not great. And the bees must be broodless. Okay, remember, Formic Pro actually kills mites under the cappings. That's why it's such a short treatment period. The other ones we've talked about, like Apogard, Apolifar, don't kill mites under the cappings, Apivar, but the treatment period is very long. So as the bees emerge with the mites, then the mites get killed. Okay? This one have to be broodless, okay? But you can use it with honey supers on the hive. That's like the one plus to this particular treatment. However, like the Apolifar, you know, the bees are never broodless when honey supers are on.
Is there a temperature problem with Hopguard, or you can use it for any temperature?
Let's, Justin, can we go back to our table and take a look? Next one. No, previous one. There you go. 52 to 92 degrees. That's a pretty broad temperature range. Pretty broad temperature range. It's hops. It's hops.
It's like a cylinder? It's not cardboard?
No, it's a strip. But Justin, you've used this stuff. You said, but you used HopGuard too, right?
Yeah, but it hasn't changed much. It's
Hasn't changed.
disgusting cardboard stress. It's just soaked in glue.
It's really messy, right?
Yeah, it's like stale beer. It's gross.
Okay, like stale beer. Okay. This is, you know.
It'll ruin your bottom boards too.
Really?
Oh, absolutely devastating.
What does it do to your bottom
If
boards?
you have anything that's more than a single screen, you'll get all the cardboard stuff.
Oh, they go to
Oh,
town.
Yeah.
okay. All right.
It's
Jeff
the
and
worst.
I will never use it again.
Nope.
Nope.
I have bottom boards that still have little bits of fuzz in them.
Oh, it's awful.
6
Fuzz.
years later.
Okay. I could probably deal with the fuzz, but I can't deal with, you know, broodless with honey supers. Anyway. All right, next slide. Yes, oxalic acid dribble. Okay, so we've got 2 oxalic acid treatments, right? We've got the dribble and we've got the vaporization. Again, both of them, the bees need to be broodless. Okay, so when are bees broodless? They're broodless in winter and in late fall. Okay, so that's when I use oxalic acid. I personally do not like the dribble method because it is really tough on bees. I've had.
Does anyone like the dribble? We've had a lot of speakers talk on oxalic and no one has been enthusiastic.
Yeah, I mean, the speaker that I trust the most on this is Jennifer Berry, who did a lot of research on it. She does not use the dribble. They don't use the dribble method down in Georgia. John Gott, I know, has used it, and he says that he's had some success with it, but I am very uncomfortable with it. Charlie?
So many years ago, I tried the dribble. It was like, I opened up, the hive was like in October, and there were mites everywhere and all of the drone brood. I was very inexperienced at the time. I was able to get a syringe from my friend who worked next door, who worked at a vet's office, so I was able to come by that. I found that the preparation, in order to get that solution, it wasn't complicated, it was just a lot of steps, you know, so it was time consuming. And the other thing I learned afterwards is that you have to do it more than once, and you really can't wait until the colonies got to the point that it was at.
Yeah.
When I got to nothing will help me at that point. But I think, you know, when all is said and done, it's not a very good delivery system.
Right. The bees really have to be broodless. And according to Jennifer Berry, people who do it multiple times, like every 5 to 7 days, and they repeat that 4 or 5 times in order to hit mites coming out of the brood, it doesn't actually reduce the mite counts. The best it'll do is keep the numbers the same. That's the best it will do. Okay, so that's why all of these oxalic acid treatments only when they're broodless. I do mine around Thanksgiving, and then I do it again typically in February, early February, you know, as cleanup treatments, but that's it. This has the one advantage of having pretty inexpensive equipment. The syringe costs pennies. And I guess you could use it as a package bee treatment if you don't want to use the, because there's no brood, you know, in a package. Can't use it on a nuke. But
Danny, how do you use it in a package? Because what they say is to dribble it between the frames.
Yeah, you would install the package, okay?
Oh, after installation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not going to.
It's also on the label that you can use it in a spray bottle and spray the package.
There you
So
go.
This one's actually labeled with 3 uses.
To spray.
The vapor, the dribble, and then the spray package piece. So just like you spray with sugar water before
Yeah.
you install them. you
That's
can
a good
spray
point.
with the oxalic acid.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. I remember that, yeah. Okay, next slide, please. Vaporization, oxalic acid vaporization. I like this one much better than the dribble because it is easy on bees. Gesundheit. I once did, I probably shared this with you before, but I once did an experiment using oxalic acid dribble on 84 colonies. I treated every other one with the dribble, okay, and left the alternate ones untreated, I had 53% mortality, okay, on the treated hives and 23% on the untreated hives. Okay, so that's, you know, that was a pretty large sampling, and I was able to conclude at a 95% confidence level, you know, statistically, that the oxalic acid dribble kills bees. And I did it in accordance with the, you know, instructions in December. This is a long time ago. I haven't used it since. Vaporization. Vaporization apparently is really easy, gentle on the bees, which is great. I mean, they come out looking like little ghosts, some of them, but, you know, but evidently it doesn't hurt them, or at least doesn't hurt a lot of them. Your safety gear is critical. I've got a, you know, a half-face gas mask on under my veil there. You must have a respirator, and that respirator had better fit right. If you breathe this stuff, you can do permanent lung damage. So really effective when the bees are broodless. It doesn't hurt the bees, and it's a great option for late fall and winter as a cleanup treatment. So after you've done everything else, you know, you go around, do this, and you're trying to give your bees a nice clean start for spring. And we have this equipment that you can rent, you know, from the club. You don't have to have the generator because our equipment is battery operated. It's got rechargeable batteries. It's easy to use. Okay, next slide. Right, so how do you design a treatment schedule? This is something else. It's like people want a fixed plan. But you know what, guys? You have to change according to the year. Every year is a little bit different. And you've got to adjust your plans based on what you're seeing in terms of nectar flows, temperature, the bees. So, but you can plan, just be ready to change if conditions change. So you plan based on your average conditions and the timing of your nectar flows. Be prepared to change and monitor your mite levels frequently. Okay. Again, as we were saying, check them after the treatment. That's really important. And rotate your treatments. Try not to use the same ones twice in a row. Okay, Justin, next slide, please. Okay, so here's one possible treatment schedule. And this scenario would apply to a lot of you, okay? So assume you've got some nice, strong, overwintered colonies, and you get a strong spring flow from April to mid-July. That's what I got. You guys got that? Probably, right? Okay. Early summer dearth, mid-July to mid-August. We used to have that. Now, last 2 years, I'm not getting dearth anymore. I still haven't gone into dearth, and I didn't go into dearth last summer. But let's assume that, okay. Let's also assume that you have at least some mites that have amitraz resistance. Okay, that rules out apivar as a treatment. And maybe you're getting a late summer flow of Japanese knotweed that starts mid-August and lasts into mid-September. But you're not getting a goldenrod flow. Okay? I know a lot of our Essex County beekeepers get the knotweed flow. We get the Japanese bamboo, but it's too far south for goldenrod. So that fits a lot of us, okay, who live in Essex County. Next slide. So how are we going to treat, given those nectar flows and those conditions? Late January to early February, you can do the oxalic acid vaporization. This is just like the second cleanup treatment, basically. In case there was any brood in the hives when you did it in November, or whatever you missed in fall, okay? You don't want it reproducing. Try and give the bees a nice clean slate. So then we do an alcohol wash in May, And typically you're going to find pretty low counts. So do you need a spring treatment? Maybe not, okay? I'm going to come back to that and tell you something I did differently this year because I learned something new. But for now, let's say no spring treatment. Mid-July, okay, your honey flow's just about over. You're going to pull your honey and put your Formic Pro pads on when you've got 85 or less for 3 days, okay? And you're going to treat with Formic Pro. Question?
Do you have to pull the honey?
Pardon?
Do you have to pull the honey?
No, you don't if you want to leave them on because Formic Pro can be, you know, you have to take off the honey supers to put your Formic Pro pads on because they've got to go in the brood nest, but you can put them back on if you're still getting a nectar flow. In fact, I did that this year.
That's right. I did last year.
Yeah.
Actually.
I did that this year because the flow had not stopped. So I, you know, bust my back. Yeah. But I had to get that treatment on. So I took honey supers off, put the Formic Pro pads on, put the honey supers back on, and went to EAS. Okay. So mid-August, we're putting our honey supers on. Okay. In this particular scenario, there was a dearth, remember? So we pulled honey in July, extracted it, and we're treating with the Formic Pro. And August, we're going to super again for the knotweed. Okay, next slide. So mid-September, the knotweed flow is over. We take the supers off, and we're going to put Apiguard on. 2 weeks later, we put the second dose of Apivar on. Okay? That's a month, right? Mid-October, we're checking our mite levels. An alcohol wash. If we don't like the numbers we're getting, we can then go back and use another treatment of Formic Pro. Yes?
I know you talked about alternating treatments, Apivar.
Right.
What happens if you stay with one, for example, Formic Pro? Does it degrade its effectiveness over time? Or what's the
Mites could develop resistance to Formic Pro. You know, that's less likely than with a chemical treatment like Apivar. You know, I mean, Apivar is our third chemical treatment since mites came to this country. We started out with fluvalinate, that was Apistan. I'm talking 25, 30 years ago. Then we got Coumaphos, okay, which was, and mites developed resistance to fluvalinate. Then we got Coumaphos, which is an organophosphate and pretty toxic to humans. Mites developed resistance to Coumaphos, okay. Then we got Apivar, which is Amitraz, and Amitraz has been used, it lasted a really long time, but now we're getting resistance to that also. Formic acid, lactic acid, oxalic acid have been in use for decades actually, and so far as I know, no resistance has been observed, not yet. But I was doing some research on this. There's really no reason that they couldn't develop resistance. There's a difference in the way those organic acids target the mite, okay? And apparently it makes it less likely that resistance will develop, but not impossible. Lynn?
Are you getting lanternfly?
I'm getting lanternfly now.
Honey?
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, so we're going back, we're treating, now remember, we just treated with Apiguard, so we're alternating, right? We use formic acid in spring, then we use Thymol, and now we're using formic acid again. So we're not repeating the same treatment twice. And on Thanksgiving, around Thanksgiving, we're going to treat with oxalic acid vapor on a day when the temperature's around 45 to 50. Why that temperature? Because you want the bees to be loosely clustered. You don't want them out flying around too much. You know, you want to treat them, but they can't be very tightly clustered, otherwise the vapor won't penetrate the cluster. Okay, so you won't get the bees. So kind of a warmish day in late November. Okay, next slide. There is no next slide. The lights. Okay, that's it. Okay.
Very good.